Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here for the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your Planning Outlook video updated on Tuesday the 14th of March. Thanks for watching. Now, focusing our attention on the weekend at this stage, and it's looking a rather unsettled one, but as often is the case, the difficulty is in the details. Basically, it's going to be areas of rain or snow on higher areas, particularly in Scotland, that will be frequent. Heaviest falls, most frequent falls, always focused on western mountains. Temperatures will be up and down. The freezing level will really vary, just depending where frontal systems do position themselves. Expect some windy conditions as well. Upland gales will be common. There may be some better periods in there, so don't write it off altogether at this stage, but just prepare for a rather unsettled weekend. Now, this is total rainfall, and bearing in mind some of this could well be snow up over the Scottish mountains in particular, this through until the end of Sunday, and the heaviest falls, as I said, focused very much on those western mountains. Exactly which of the western mountains between Scotland, northwest England and Wales sees the heaviest and most prolonged falls is less certain, but I think all in all, if you're across those western regions, expect some pretty frequent rain or snow. Whilst away towards the east, you're looking at much lower rainfall totals, contrast values of around 50 to 75 millimetres, that's 2 or 3 inches, maybe a bit more on some western mountains, with values only around half an inch of rain or so, 10 mil, across some more eastern regions. So we'll just set the scene for these next few days ahead. All your details for your local regions, as always, in the daily updated written files here on the website. Wednesday sees a warm front pushing across western Scotland, giving low cloud and drizzly rain. Some strengthening winds as well, getting towards gale force on those higher mountains. Elsewhere, though, a largely dry and bright day, with some sunshine coming through pretty well. Now, Thursday sees a cold front moving in from the northwest and just heralds the change then to cooler and more unsettled conditions developing. Some rain increasingly turning to snow, perhaps quite abruptly, as the freezing level drops across Scotland. Meanwhile, though, across England and Wales, a good part of the eastern highlands, it's largely dry, but expect strong winds, I think gale force, pretty widely again on the mountains. So just pick up on that story with the temperature chart, and this is the 850 millibar temperatures. That's around 4,500 to 5,000 feet in the atmosphere. The numbers with the white backgrounds that shows you height in decameters. Now that's add a zero, and you'll find the height above sea level in meters. So we can just about see where that cold front is then through Thursday daytime, and that colder air spilling back in then pretty quickly from the west as time goes on. The freezing level dropping towards 600 metres or so, I suspect, by the end of the afternoon. Maybe even lower than that as we go towards sunset. Just keep an eye on your details of that one. Into Friday then, we stay with the pretty low freezing levels across much of Scotland. There's through to midday on Friday, maybe just lifting a little bit through the day, but most of the higher mountains staying below freezing, and at the risk of precipitation coming in, falling widely as snow. We'll take a look at that in a second. But I suspect freezing levels across the highlands are down at 500-600 metres for much of the day, particularly across northern regions. So there's your chart for Friday then. We've got that waving frontal system just moving in from the Atlantic. Exactly how far north or south this sits by this stage is somewhat uncertain, but I think particularly focusing towards southwest Scotland, that's where the heaviest of the precipitation is likely to be. Rain at lower levels, but I think even to around 500 or 600 metres across the Scottish Highlands, as that colder air exists, we could find snow coming down to that sort of level. So a pretty poor day, the possibility of extensive whiteout across those more western mountains. Further north, though, say around Isle of Skye northwards, you may find that you're just north of the worst of that system, so it may not do too bad. Eastern Scotland, likewise, seeing much lower amounts of rain or snow. Further south into England and Wales, it's largely a story of rain as you're in the milder air in that part of the world. So if we just go back to the temperature chart to go through the weekend, and basically the message is that Scotland stays in the colder air and England and Wales stay in somewhat milder air. The exact boundary of that will change as those frontal waves just move through during the weekend. And I think all in all, higher mountains in Scotland are likely to stay below freezing throughout, whilst elsewhere generally tending to lift above freezing, particularly across England and Wales. And I think as the weekend goes on, the indications just favour that milder air just nudging back somewhat further northwards, but whether it gets as far north as the north of the Highlands remains to be seen. So I suspect even through Sunday, those higher tops of Scotland stay sub-zero. So tentatively, that's Saturday's chart, and it's that frontal wave system that is extending across England and Wales. There may well be pulses of rain and snow affecting Scotland, though, and again, with that freezing level fairly well down, snow coming down to 500-600 metres once again. So fresh snowfalls across the Highlands, at least for a time, always most persistent generally towards the west. And just where that frontal band settles is really where the heaviest of the rain is going to be. At the moment it looks focused on Wales. That could quite easily encompass the Lake District and even into southwest Scotland if that wave just nudges a bit further north. So always be prepared for that and expect pretty brisk westerly winds, the possibility of being gale force much of the day. And there's Sunday's chart. Again, a windy day for many places. The risk of gales on the mountains much of the time, but could be some local lulls in there. Again, don't treat the absolute detail of this chart with any great certainty. That frontal system, a similar waving feature to what was seen during Saturday, suggested as moving back further north, but exactly where it settles again is a tricky one. Always western mountains would take the worst of any rainfall, drier towards the east, and it may well be that milder air just pushes back further north, so the snow is more confined to the mountains of northern Scotland. And just briefly to finish with, we'll just look into next week, and I think initially that cooler air very much still hangs on across Scotland, the air mass coming round from the North Atlantic and Greenland within the westerly flow. It stays rather changeable, with some fronts bringing some rain, snow, either in the form of something persistent or in showers in the early part of next week. Then indications trying to build high pressure from the southwest. It may be that a ridge of higher pressure goes through and gives something of a brighter day at some point into midweek. It may well be a couple of days of somewhat better weather, but I would suggest being cautious with being too optimistic. I think a rather changeable outlook, particularly across northern Britain, is still going to be the story into next week. So a very tricky one to pin down the absolute details at this stage, but I think just expect a rather unsettled weekend on the whole. We'll update this video for you on Friday with further thoughts into the next week ahead. That's your very latest planning outlook here at the Mountain Weather Information Service. Thanks for watching and bye for now.